For a long time, I was good at what I did. I mean that seriously. I had results. I had clients. I had proof that the work worked. And yet, every single time I got in front of a new client, I was starting from zero. Explaining myself, proving myself, justifying my price, walking them through why they should trust me, even though I had just done this exact thing for someone else last month. It was exhausting, and I did not understand why. The work was good. The results were real. So why was I still having to sell so hard? It took me longer than I want to admit to figure out what was missing. It was not my skills. It was not my offer. It was not even my price. It was that nobody outside the room knew any of it existed. That is what we are talking about today. Brand equity. What it actually is, how it works inside an income system, and why building it deliberately changed everything about how I operate. Let us get into it. I used to think brand was for big companies. Logo, tagline, ad campaigns. That whole world felt like it had nothing to do with what I was building. So I ignored it completely. And that was a mistake. Not because brand is about looking good, but because I did not understand what brand equity actually does mechanically. Here is the simplest way I can put it. Brand equity is the accumulated trust and recognition that makes your market pre-sold before the conversation even starts. It is not a vibe. It is not aesthetics. It is a structural asset, the same way a referral network is an asset, the same way a recurring revenue contract is an asset. And like any asset, it does work on your behalf, even when you are not in the room. Think about it this way. Every sale you make has an invisible cost attached to it. Not the price. I mean the energy cost of getting someone to trust you enough to buy. The pitch, the proof, the proposal, the follow-up, the objection, the discount you end up giving because they are still not sure. I started calling that the trust tax. Every business pays it. The question is how much? When I had no brand equity, my trust tax was enormous. I was paying full price on every single transaction. As the brand equity started to build slowly through content, through results, through showing up consistently, that tax started to drop. Leads came in already knowing what I did. Some of them had already decided before we got on a call. A few had been watching for months and just needed the right moment. Same offer, same price, lower trust tax, higher close rate, less work per sale. That is the leverage. Brand equity does not appear all at once. I noticed it building in 3 distinct stages. The first stage is recognition. This is when people start to know you exist. They have seen your name. They have seen your content maybe once or twice. They cannot tell you exactly what you do yet, but something registers when they hear your name. I remember the first time a prospect mentioned they had seen something I put out before we even got on a call. It was a small thing, but it changed the entire energy of that conversation. I was not starting from zero anymore. We were already somewhere. Recognition does not close deals by itself, but it lowers every barrier that comes after it. The second stage is positioning. This is when people do not just know you exist. They know what you stand for. They associate you with a specific result, a specific way of thinking, a specific type of person you help. This took me a while to build because I was trying to appeal to everyone. And when you try to talk to everyone, you end up resonating with no one. The moment I got specific, stopped trying to be a general business person and started talking about income as systems, about structure over hustle, about building assets instead of chasing revenue, the right people started finding me. And more importantly, the wrong people stopped taking up my time. Positioning is also the thing that makes referrals actually work. Because your clients finally have the language to describe you accurately to someone else. The third stage is trust equity. This is when people follow your recommendation without needing to verify it. When they buy before you have finished explaining. When they send people to you without being asked. I am not going to pretend I built this fast. It took time. It took consistency. It took delivering on what I said I would deliver over and over until the track record was undeniable. But when it kicked in, the nature of my business changed completely. I stopped selling and started selecting. Here's what I wish someone had told me earlier. Brand equity is not a separate track from your income systems. It is not something you work on over here while you run your business over there. Brand equity is the infrastructure underneath every system you have. And without it, every system underperforms. Let me show you what I mean. When I had a lead generation system running with no brand equity, every lead was cold. Zero prior context. I was a stranger asking for trust and money at the same time. Conversion was low. The cost of acquiring each client, in time and in energy, was high. I ran the same system after 12 months of consistent content. Same structure. Same offer. The leads coming in had context. Some had been watching for weeks. The sales conversations were shorter. The objections were fewer. The close rate was meaningfully higher. Same system. Different substrate. Completely different output. The same thing happened with referrals. Before my positioning was clear, referrals came in vague. He does business stuff. You should talk to him. Not exactly compelling. Half of them were completely wrong fit. After positioning was strong, referrals came in pre-qualified. My clients had the language because I had given it to them through my content. And then there is pricing. This is the one that hit me the hardest. I used to think I had a pricing problem, that I needed to justify my rates better, build a better proposal, handle objections more skillfully. I did not have a pricing problem. I had a perceived value problem. When your brand equity is low, there is a gap between what you charge and what the market thinks you are worth. You spend all your time trying to close that gap in the sales conversation. It is exhausting, and it usually does not fully work. When your brand equity grows, that gap closes. Suddenly, you are charging less than people expect to pay. That is when you can raise prices without resistance. Not because you got better at selling, but because the market's perception finally caught up to your actual value. Now let me tell you what actually worked for me. Not a framework. What I did. The first thing was getting specific about my point of view. Not just my niche, my actual perspective. The thing I believed about income and systems that most people were not saying. That took me a while to find. I had to put things out, watch what resonated, listen to what questions kept coming back. But once I found it, everything I created had a through line. People started recognizing my thinking, not just my face. The second thing was treating proof like a system. I stopped waiting for testimonials and started building them into my delivery process. Every client result got documented. Every transformation got captured. Not to brag, but because proof is the raw material of trust, and trust is what brand equity is made of. If you are not systematically generating and distributing proof, you are leaving the most valuable currency in your business on the table. The third thing was consistency over intensity. I spent time early on trying to produce perfect content. It took forever, and it paralyzed me. Then I watched channels with rougher production but relentless consistency outperform mine. Showing up every week, imperfectly, for 18 months does more for brand equity than a viral video you never follow up on. The algorithm rewards consistency. But more importantly, your audience's trust is built by reliability. When you show up when you said you would, it signals something. It is a small promise kept. And small promises kept are the foundation of the big trust that converts. The last thing was protecting the brand like a financial asset. Brand equity can be depleted. I have seen people burn years of trust equity in a single bad launch. One overpromise they could not deliver on. One client experience they cut corners on. I became very selective about who I worked with, what I put my name on, and what I promised. Not out of fear, but out of asset management. The brand is an asset. Treat it like one. Here is the thing about brand equity that took me the longest to understand. You cannot see it being built in real time. It does not show up in your dashboard. There is no metric that tells you your trust account just went up. You only notice it in retrospect. You look back 6 months and realize conversations are different. Clients are different. The energy of the work is different. And then you realize that all those weeks of showing up, of putting out work you were not sure anyone was watching, of staying consistent when it felt pointless, that was the investment. It was compounding the whole time. You just could not see it. Brand equity is the long game that makes every other game easier. The operators who understand that, who treat their brand the way they treat their systems, as something to be built deliberately and protected carefully, those are the ones who eventually stop competing on price. Stop starting from zero with every client and start operating from a position of actual leverage. That is what I am building toward. That is what this whole series is about. If you have been here since the beginning, you already understand the foundation. If this is your first video, go back to episode 1. The whole arc is designed to build on itself. And if you got something from this today, subscribe, because we are just getting to the part where everything compounds. I will see you tomorrow.